Hello. Today we are joined by Kamini Wood, a truly distinguished figure whose work transcends the traditional boundaries of life coaching. Kamini, the founder of Live Joy Your Way, an esteemed author, speaker, and resilience expert, deeply understands the complexities of human behavior and leadership. Her innovative approach integrates principles of emotional intelligence, self-compassion, and authenticity, guiding individuals and leaders alike towards profound professional and personal transformation. Kamini's commitment to fostering resilience, a genuine leadership, has inspired countless individuals to lead with purpose and integrity. It is such a pleasure to have you with us today and share your valuable insights. Kamini Wood, let's welcome her in. Hello,
Thank
how
you
are you?
so much. Thank you. That was such a great introduction. I so appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for joining us today on Always Developing Leader podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. And being such an esteemed leader, it's just awesome to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
of course. So you're a busy woman. So can you tell us a little bit about your life? What led you to where you're at today, Kamini, and what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So it was not a linear path, that's for sure. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, predominantly white town. I share that with you because I'm also the daughter of two immigrant parents. So growing up in this small town where I don't look like the other kids, and I have a name like Kamini, so it definitely sticks out. As a very early age, there was this need to figure out, how do I belong? How do I fit in? How do I get to that place of acceptance? And so
Yes.
from a very early age, I definitely developed some people-pleasing tendencies where I was essentially trying to make other people happy in order to get that acceptance, right? In order to feel like I was part of the group. The other part of just being the daughter of immigrant parents who are working really hard to provide for my sister and I, they worked long hours. And one of the things as their daughter that I really took on as my own was not wanting to be a burden. And so a lot of my perfectionist tendencies kind of took over at that time as well. Again, when you're 5 or 6 years old, you don't really know these things. You're really just trying to solve whatever the issue is at the time the best way that you can. And
Yeah.
so, I went through a great upbringing. I mean, I have nothing to complain about, absolutely nothing to complain about. And, ended up working as a project manager in the .com industry, ended up running the project management office for said .com, moved on
Oh,
to
wow.
running a law practice. So professionally, I kept finding myself in these roles where I was essentially working with individuals to help them understand what it was that they needed, either to get their job done, the project completed, but moreover, I would get to know them personally and was really being that support system to help them grow on an individual basis as well. Now,
Amen.
that
Yeah,
was
that
all
makes
happening professionally, right? And now I have
yeah,
to also give the personal side of it too. So one of the
which is
things
so
that
important. Yeah.
I'm a busy woman. Well, really, truly, what that means is I'm also the mom of five. My oldest is currently 22. I have a 20-year-old, almost 18-year-old, 15, newly 15-year-old, and then a 10-year-old as the date of this recording. So I've been busy, and during those years of running the law practice, one of the things that was happening was my children were getting older, and I was starting to notice them mirror back a lot of those people-pleasing perfectionist tendencies. And so I had to really own that, meaning, our children are a mirror to us. They're showing us how we're showing up. So I had to own that part and recognize that some of this was learned behavior through how I was showing up. And I had to go through that self-work to understand, where might I be holding myself back? And that's really where I learned and unpacked for myself that people-pleasing perfectionism, it did stem from my childhood, not because of a trauma, but because of how I was working through and solving the fact that I did feel different, or that I didn't belong, or solving the fact that I didn't want to be a burden or cause additional issues for my parents who were working really hard as it was. Through that self-transformation, though, I recognized that was purposeful in many ways, not just for my own growth as an individual, but now I can take those experiences and I can match it with what I was loving on a professional basis, that part of really helping other people learn about themselves and figure out where they wanted to go. And I could bring those two things together. And that's essentially what I've done by creating my coaching practice, which is helping individuals understand themselves on a deeper level, and really learning to understand themselves without shame, without judgment, take that understanding and figure out how it is that they want to move forward professionally and personally.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when you have these people. I have the same thing as far as the people pleasing tendencies. And before I started coaching, it was interesting that I didn't really realize what all of that meant. I knew that I didn't like to tell people no. I knew that I like to make people happy. I knew I like to help people, but I really didn't understand that, you know, putting these things together can really be and mean something so powerful. And
Mhm.
just being your authentic self, and what you've really put your concentration on it's so important because with the social media and with everything the way that it is here in 2024, I find so many people that are, and maybe not even knowingly, but being so unauthentic, and
Mhm.
thinking that they're, I don't know, it's just such a hard way to live. And I applaud what you're doing as far as the authentic living goes, because I think it's so important. And it's with you being a mother of five, my gosh. And one of those is a Division 1 athlete, and one of those is the professional ballerina, correct?
Yes, yes. My oldest
Okay.
is a professional ballerina, and my second oldest is Division 1. He's playing Division 1 lacrosse right now.
Oh, that's so cool. So not just of kids, but of kids that are high performing. I mean, they're high performing students. And being a Division 1 athlete myself, student athlete number 1 is one of the most stressful and hard, demanding things that I've ever done in my life. And so being a mother, I can't even imagine of two people, two kids that are just performing out of this world. It's got to be an amazing feeling, especially with what you're doing.
It is amazing, but I will also share and be very transparent that it's stressful and difficult at the same time. Because, there's the mother side where you see the struggles and you wanna make that better. Because as a mom, the one thing is like, you wanna keep your kids safe and you wanna keep them from really any pain, which we know is not possible, but that's just the mother instinct, right?
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
work that I've done, and really I work with high performers all the time, that then I also have the coach hat where I'm able to help them unpack things. And so it's very interesting because one of the conversations we generally have is when they're sharing something with me, I generally will stop and say, "Do you want mom or coach right now?" Because that gives us a little bit of a boundary around how they want me to show up, and we're very clear about expectations. Because sometimes we just want mom. We want mom to just be like, "You know what? That's hard and terrible, and I'm sorry that you're going through that."
Yeah. Yeah. Give me a hug. Give me a hug, mom. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I completely agree with that. It's so funny that you say that because it feels like since I've gone into this coaching realm 100%, and that's what I'm focusing on now, just 100% of my time.
Mhm.
It's funny how people that were close to me before I started doing this, on a regular basis, it's almost like that's the case. And it's funny how they come to situations, almost different, saying, "So are you going to be my coach or are you going to be my friend?" And it's like,
Yeah,
who do you want me to be? Because I want to help
right,
you. However you
right.
want me to show up, I want to be there for you. And that's really, it's amazing because my biggest thing is intentional living, and if you can be intentional about the way that you're showing up with these different people and individuals that you're showing up with, man, it really does help.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you though, in your approach, Kamini, how do you integrate the emotional intelligence with the leadership development? Because emotional intelligence is something I feel like not everybody has, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's such a great question because I do think with leadership, the old school way of looking at leadership is to almost lead through, I hate to say it, like, it's not dictatorship, but it's very much, this is the way we do things. And there's not a lot of room for what and how a person is responding and reacting or what they're feeling about a situation. And so when we're
Yeah.
developing leadership, it's about developing empathetic leaders. And what I really mean by that is make room for the fact that when you're leading people, you're leading the whole person. You're leading not just their brain, but you're leading their entire being. So also their spirit and their mind, spirit, and body, so to speak. And so building that emotional intelligence, putting the room, making it safe for people to have their experiences and to start communicating what it is, not just what they're feeling, but what they're experiencing through situations. When we build our leadership around that, we're making it emotionally safe for our team members to communicate to us, especially what they need. And if they're not able to communicate what we need, then it's really difficult to then see our projects through to the end. So when we're talking about leadership, it's not about just telling people what to do, but it's allowing them to show up as their complete self and building that safe space to have that communication in order to move the entire team forward.
That's such a great point. That is such a great point. And it gives me almost goosebumps when I hear you talk about that, because I feel like that's something that's so overlooked when we're talking about teams and team dynamics. I think that old style of leadership, like you're talking about it, that managerial, I've got a manager and I'm the manager, or I'm the whatever, that boss, or I'm overseeing you. And it's not about the collaboration. It's not about the team dynamic and the culture they're building within the company. It's about,
Yes.
I oversee you, and this is almost, it's a hierarchy, and how does this work, and who's over who? And when you're looking at it that way, I go into organizations every so often where it is, that dynamic is so strong. It's a wonder that the business is still afloat.
Yeah.
But really, with just getting some of those top leaders to switch the mindset that they have, where it's, business isn't just professional. It's not transactional. It's got to be about personal. It's got to be personal. And if it's not, then you're going to, in 2024, you're not going to do well with your turnover, because organizations are focusing on culture, and they are focusing on building and looking after their employees. And I feel like that's something that every employer is going to have to do in the next little while, because it's becoming something that it's necessary for businesses to survive. And it's something that's been so long in coming. I've been waiting for this for so long, and I'm so glad that we're finally here, to where businesses are finally starting to look at culture as one of the number one movers and shakers of what that business can do.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up, because even because I work with the gamut of individuals, so teenagers all the way through mature adults. And one of my clientele base are college age students, college age students who are just graduating, and they're looking for work right now. And I know for a fact that they're looking and asking questions about the culture, because that is such a part. What we've learned is that when we don't pay attention to that culture, we're not looking at the people working on our teams as human beings, right? We're just looking at them as human doings, not human beings. That sets up the dynamic for burnout. That sets up the dynamic for toxic situations. And so our students who are graduating are coming into this more aware of what they're looking for, and they're looking for companies that are paying attention to the culture that they're creating.
Yeah. So what piece of advice would you give to these young leaders that are looking to build and get into, say, resilient teams, or teams and cultures that are what they're looking for and that are going to take care of them? What would you give them? What piece of advice?
Well, for the college graduates who are getting into the workforce and trying to figure out where they want to land, it's before you go into figuring out what, before you interview, getting really clear on what it is that you need in an environment, what it is that you value in your work environment, and get very clear on those two things. And then when you go into that interview, remember that you're not just being interviewed, you're interviewing them too. So ask the really important questions of making sure that those needs and those values can be met based on the questions that you're asking. And on the flip side, for the leaders and the company owners who are creating these jobs, paying attention to the idea that the people that you are bringing into your fold, make room for them to come in as their whole person, not just, like worker bees. Because at the end of the day, worker bees will get the job done to a certain point, but eventually they're going to burn out. And if you want your company and your teams to sustain, just to your point about turnover, it is about making that culture welcoming, and also recognizing that as human beings, we do have emotions and feelings that are coming up. And it's not about make the workplace a touchy-feely place. That's not what I'm saying at all, but making room for the experiences that our team members are having. Because when we understand their experience and we can empathize with it and put ourselves in their shoes, we're no longer coming from that top-down position, but we're coming from a team-led position.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much. And I guess just kind of piggybacking on that, could you share one transformative exercise or practice that you would recommend to these guys that are striving to become more authentic and more resilient?
Yeah. Yeah. I often say that the go-to is spend that time to figure out what your core values are and spend the time to figure out what your core needs are. Those are two really transformative exercises that you can go through. And I know that online there's a lot of lists that you can find and you just I'm a firm believer that it's not just about looking at a list and asking yourself, okay, which ones out of this list make the most sense to me, but spend time with it, ask certain questions like, what are some times in my life that I've had that I remember from a positive perspective. What were those experiences like? And then flip the coin over. What were some moments where I felt regret or I felt maybe sad by an experience? Because even in grief, through grief, we will be able to pick out what we value. So it's being able to look at both sides of that coin and spending that time to go into those types of inner work questions, paying attention to what have I experienced in my life and what has meant the most to me, then going to one of those lists and figuring out what those top core values are. That's what's really needed. Because even when we're setting goals, most often people will set goals, but they don't do it from an intrinsic place. They kind of set it because it's maybe what they think they should set or from an external perspective. I know a lot of, again, college age students are graduating, they're coming into their own agency. A lot of times they will find themselves doing something because mom or dad maybe suggested it. Instead, this is pushing people to say what means and what's valuable to me and setting those goals against their values and their needs. Because when we set goals against those two things, now we're intrinsically motivated to see them through because now we have some connection to it.
Yes. And, I just can speak from a personal standpoint of, from the time that really can remember until very recently, honestly, the last maybe 3.5 years, I was living so much like that. I mean, that's how I think so many people, they're wanting to please others and they're wanting to do maybe what they thought their parents or think their parents want for them. They're not looking for what is going to truly and authentically make them, their cup full and fill their cup on a daily basis. They're going to work, they're getting burnt out, they're experiencing, like you said, that overwhelm. And they're changing. They're not happy in their workplace. They're not happy in their home life. It's funny how those two correlate so closely together. As far as when you're not happy at home, you're usually not happy at work, and vice versa. If you're not happy at work, you're usually not happy at home, right? And it's so amazing to me when you see these young, especially the younger generations that are coming out and graduating from college or coming out of high school, looking to go to college. And they're looking at what is going to make them happy. What kind of culture can they get in, and can they know that they're actually, when they go to work every day, that they are working for a greater good, that what they're doing is benefiting them, not just that person they're working for or their employer, right? When they
Yes.
feel like they're part of the team, when they feel valued, when they feel welcome, when they feel needed, when they feel wanted, and then they feel like they're getting something from that. And to be honest with you, as an employer, it doesn't take a whole lot to make a shift from going from one side, to being, having a culture that people and these younger generations are going to really appreciate. And so I really hope that, some of the people that are watching this really, they take a look at their culture. What does it look like when you go to work? Are you happy about the way that looks? Are people happy at work? Are they excited to be there? There's so many things that employers can look at, and then vice versa, employees look at for employers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love what you just said. It is an invitation. It's not about judgment, but an invitation to say, let's look at our culture. Let's understand what's happening in our culture. And are people excited to be there? Are they drawn to be there? Are they wanting to be there? Because that tells us a lot.
Amen. Oh, I love that. I love that. Kamini, I cannot thank you enough. It's been such an incredibly enlightening, I've loved this, being able to dive into your insights on authentic leadership and resilience. I mean, your expertise not only inspire, but really is going to equip, I think, our audience with the tangible strategies for hopefully personal and professional growth that they can dive into. I want to share a little bit about how they can get a hold of you if people are looking to contact you. So I've got your website here.
Yes.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Visiting the website, kaminiwood.com, there's actually a book a call button right on the website, so I can just fill out that simple form and we can have a chat and to see if coaching is the right fit.
That's awesome. Well, and it's so funny because coaching, there's a lot of life coaches out there. There's a lot of
Yes.
personal coaches out there right now. And so
Mhm.
what is your recommendation when you have somebody that is thinking, hey, I want to do something more with my life. I'm not exactly sure what direction to go. I think I might want to coach or I want to look into that.
Mhm.
What's your recommendation for that person that's looking
Mhm.
to get the right fit? Because not every coach is right for every individual, right?
Absolutely, and you're spot on. There are so many of us, and that's actually a gift. It's a wonderful gift because each one of us has unique needs. And so when looking for that right person, it is to have these conversations and to take the time to figure out who you resonate with. And I wholeheartedly hold every single person I talk to, I hold space for that very, very fact, which is I want the yes to be an absolute yes coming from my client to work with me because what we're creating between the two of us is that emotional safe space in order to unpack what needs to be unpacked. And so take the time to figure out. I know so many people will reach out and then maybe they'll say, well, I found somebody. And that's totally fine. It's just take your time with it. Don't feel like you have to rush into hiring the very first person that you talk to.
Oh, that's so smart. Thank you so much. And like I say, if you guys want to connect with Kamini, please reach out. Website's up there on the screen right now. And again, Kamini, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, for the authentic leadership, for the resilience work, for everything that you've done. And gosh, good luck and just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
We'll talk to you later. Thank you guys so much. Bye bye.